Chess rules are basic, but sometimes they can get pretty confusing. From claiming a win by playing an illegal move, to a special move called en passant that allows you to magically capture a pawn out of nowhere, and even a special bishop move that allows you to capture 2 pawns at the same time. In this video, we will be talking about 20 chess rules that everyone should know. Starting off with number 20, we have the stalemate. The stalemate is a rule that just suddenly comes up out of nowhere and have you punch your screen out of frustration, or flip the board if you're playing over the board. The stalemate rule basically states that if your king is not in check, and you have no other legal moves you can play, whether your king piece or your other piece on the board, the game ends in a draw. In this position, you can see that the rook on b7 traps the king in the corner, and it's black's turn to move. Black's king doesn't have any legal squares he can go to, since it would mean he would be in check, and he also has no other pieces to move. Black cannot do anything, thus the game ends in a draw due to stalemate. Even if we add 2 pawns, the game still ends in a draw, since black's pawns is blocked and cannot also move. This rule is frustrating even for the white players, since this is a winnable position if he had done the right moves, but instead, it ended in a draw. Number 19. 2 illegal moves will lose you the game. In chess, there are illegal moves that you can't play, obviously, whether it's moving your king into check, moving a piece to a wrong square, or playing any other illegal move. If you somehow lose focus and do play an illegal move for the first time, your opponent can stop the clock and call in an arbiter. The arbiter will give you a warning and increase your opponent's time on the clock. However, if you repeat your mistake and play an illegal move the second time, your chances of winning the game are over and you automatically get a loss. This usually happens over the board and not online, since chess.com doesn't allow you to play illegal moves. A rule that is fair in my opinion. Number 18. White moves first. Have you ever wondered why white moves first? Why not black? Is it a color thing? Is chess racist? Well, stop right there. Before you can get any crazy ideas, the rule behind white plays first is a pretty simple one actually. There are many stories behind why this happens. One of the most common ones is that traditionally, when chess was first introduced, black was considered the lucky color, and whoever played the black pieces had luck on their side. So it was decided that since black is already lucky, let's balance things out and let white play first. Another reason is just because this is the way the rule was made. Someone has to play first at all times, and in order to avoid confusion every time before playing, and also with opening names and such, they just settled on white, and the rule was set since then. Technically, the rule does not specifically say the white pieces that moves first, it's always the lighter color pieces. So if we had a sky blue and a dark blue chess set, the sky blue pieces move first. So no, chess is not racist. It's just a rule that was set hundreds of years ago. But moving on, we have rule number 17, the famous en passant. A rule that many people think doesn't exist and think either the player executing the move is cheating or they just came up with it on the spot. The en passant is a special move that involves pawns that is easy to understand but can be a bit complicated to explain. En passant is a French term that means in passing, and it basically states that if a pawn moves 2 squares from a starting position and lands right next to a pawn, the opponent can capture the pawn diagonally and land right behind it. As you can see in this example, the pawn moves 2 squares from a starting position, lands right next to a pawn, then the pawn captures diagonally and lands behind it. This move can only be played on the turn it has been played, and cannot be played on later turns. Pretty confusing, but a fun move to play, especially against new players. The look on their faces is priceless. Next we have number 16, the 50 move rule. The 50 move rule is another lesser known rule in chess that can result in a draw. The rule states that if both players have made 50 moves without a capture or a pawn move, a player can claim a draw. This rule is in place to prevent players from endlessly playing in a position that cannot be won. If a player believes that 50 moves have been played without a capture or a pawn move, they can claim a draw by stopping the clock and asking the arbiter to verify the moves. A similar rule to that is the 75 move rule that was recently introduced. This also claims that if 75 moves have been played without a capture or a pawn move, a game is declared as a draw. But you might be wondering, what's the use of a 75 move rule if a 50 move rule is in place? Because in order to get to 75, you have to pass through 50 moves, and by then, the game will have ended. Well, this is where a slight difference in the rules is placed. The 50 move rule gives the players the option to stop and claim a draw, but they can also keep playing if they want to. The 75 move rule, however, is forced, and players must stop the game and declare a draw. Number 14. The double hand rule. While playing over the board, a player is not allowed to play a move with one hand and click the clock with the other. If you play a move with your left hand and then proceed to hit the clock with your right hand, your opponent can stop the clock and tell the arbiter about the rule break. The arbiter will give you a warning, plus maybe add some time to the opponent's clock, but there won't be a second warning, and you can lose the game if you repeat your mistake. Number 13. The double hand rule also applies to pawn promotion. When you get your pawn to your opponent's back rank and you're about to promote it to a new queen, you're not allowed to remove your pawn with one hand and add your new queen with the other. Both moves should be done using one hand. Same thing with castling. Castling should be done with one hand, where you pick up your king, move it to its correct square, then grab your rook with the same hand and move it over. Number 11. Castling. Castling is a special move that involves the king and a rook. This is one of the first special moves a player learns, and it's a crucial one. This move allows the king to move 2 squares towards a rook, and then place the rook on the other side of the king, putting your king in safety and away from danger. You have 2 castling options, long castling or queenside castling, and short castling or kingside castling. Both very effective and useful moves that you should always aim to do when setting up your opening. In order to castle, both your king and your rook should be on their starting squares, and you cannot castle if one piece was moved. There are situations, however, that do not allow you to effectively castle, such as number 10, castling while in check or through a check. This is a rule that was put in place in order to deny a king and a rook to castle if a king has to go through a check. If any piece like a rook, bishop, queen, or knight is controlling a file or a square in between the king and rook, castling cannot be done. Number 9. Threefold repetition. A player may claim a draw if an identical position has appeared on the chessboard at least 3 times. It does not have to be 3 times in a row. It doesn't matter that there are other moves in between. What matters is that this exact position happened 3 times. On the 3rd time, it is declared a draw. If you suspect a threefold repetition, you can call in a tournament official to stop the clock and review the claim, and either have you continue the game if your claim was wrong, or declare a draw. There is no penalty for an incorrect claim of threefold repetition, and a tournament official will observe the next moves of the game. Number 8. Playing a wrong move. If you play a wrong move, for example, you move the knight to a wrong square, move some other piece when your king is in check, or any other wrong or illegal move, your opponent can stop the clock and call the arbiter on the board to handle the situation. The arbiter will give you 1 warning and add time to the opponent's clock. And same as double hand rule, there won't be a second chance if you do it again, you will lose the game.
Number 7.
Talking on the board. Taunting or trash talking is fun during a basketball game, when a player dunks over someone and throws him down the court. Any kind of talk can be considered a distraction, and you must avoid it at any cost. The only words allowed to say on the board is saying check when you have given a check to your opponent, or offering a draw, which your opponent can answer with an accept, reject, or no reaction at all, or also zadoob, which I will explain later in the video. Some players don't even talk when offering a draw. They just bring their hand forward after making eye contact that signals a draw offer. This only applies in certain high-level tournaments, however. If you're playing with your friend in your house, you're free to talk trash as much as you want. Another rule that is enforced in tournaments, but not so much in friendly games with your friends, is the no-touch rule. The no-touch rule, or the touch move rule, is one of the most important rules in chess. Simply put, the touch move rule states that if a player touches one of their pieces, they must move that piece if it has a legal move. This rule prevents players from touching pieces without the intention of moving them, which could be used to intimidate or mislead the opponents. Another part of the touch move rule is when castling. The king must be the first piece touched. If you touch a rook, you must move it, which screws up the castle. A player can only touch a piece without the intent of moving it if he says jadoob or I adjust prior to touching the piece. Number 5. Claim a win by playing an illegal move. This is a rule that I find useless and truly unfair for both players. This rule states that if your opponent played an illegal move, and you somehow didn't notice and played your move normally, your move becomes the illegal move, and your opponent could call the arbiter and claim a win. This actually happened with world champion Magnus Carlsen in a game in the FIDE World Blitz Championship in 2017, where his opponent Ernesto Narkiev made an illegal move, and Magnus was unable to spot it and continued normally to play his move. And Narkiev stopped the clock and claimed victory on the basis that Carlsen made an illegal move. The initial arbiter at first awarded Narkiev the win, but Carlsen alerted the chief arbiter, who overruled the first arbiter and gave Narkiev the option of resuming the game from the position arising after Carlsen's move, in which Narkiev refused and Carlsen was awarded the win. I think that this rule should be removed since both players played an illegal move and no one should be given the win. Moving on, however, we have number 4. You can't take back moves. This is a pretty obvious rule if you think about it. It basically states that if you move a piece to a square, you can't change your mind and take the move back and play another one. You have to stick to it or you will get a warning and possibly lose the game. This also happened with Magnus Carlsen versus Boris Shevchenko in the World Blitz Championship in 2010. Magnus touched and moved his king to a square that would have been a bad move for him. He quickly, however, changes his mind and moves it to a new square, which is illegal. Shevchenko quickly pointed it out, which resulted in a hilarious reaction by Magnus. Magnus then just accepted his mistake and shook his opponent's hand, which meant he just resigned the game. And now we reach our final 3 rules, and at number 3, we have draw by insufficient material. An insufficient material draw is called in chess when neither player has enough pieces left on the board so that they can checkmate the other player. Positions that lead to a draw by insufficient material is often a king versus bishop, or king versus knight. There are other positions as well, but these are the most common ones. Moving on to number 2, we have a rule that is also strictly applied in tournaments and not so much in friendly games. When promoting your pawn, you are not allowed to press the clock before placing your new promoted piece. So you have to push the pawn, remove it from the board, place the newly promoted piece, and only then can you press the clock. This happened multiple times between grandmasters, like in a game between Hikaru Nakamura and Fabiano Caruana, and a game between Garry Kasparov and Veselin Topalov. And finally, we have the number 1 chess rule that everyone should know, but very few actually do, and it's called El Vaticano. This is one of the most uncommon rules in all of chess. This is a special move that allows 2 pawns to be captured at the same time if surrounded by 2 bishops. Let me explain. If you have 2 pawns that are side to side or piled up on the same file with 2 bishops surrounding them from each side, you can play a special move called El Vaticano, where both bishops switch places and allow you to capture both pawns at the same time. This move is only possible if the 4 pieces are all in the same file on top of each other, or in a straight line side to side, and is not possible diagonally. El Vaticano can only be performed by rotating the bishops clockwise. It is illegal to perform it counterclockwise, and it's considered a violation. Another name variation for this special move is B-O-O-B, due to the shape of the position. This is actually a meme and not an actual move. Please do not come at me in the comments, it's a joke. But anyways, thank you for watching this video, and let me know down in the comments. Did you know all of these? Which ones were new to you? Don't forget to subscribe and watch the video on your screen right now. YouTube thinks you'll love it just as much as this one.